Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about horror movies and why in particular horror fans prefer to watch classic horror movies on formats like VHS. It seems like an odd choice when you think about it. I mean, after all, why would someone choose to watch a VHS copy at a much lower resolution? Why would someone choose that when they have a beautiful pristine Blu-ray copy available to them? Well, obviously, we will get to that. So let's look at a movie like A Nightmare on Elm Street, starring Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. So, A Nightmare on Elm Street, I think, benefits greatly from the lower resolution of VHS. But why is that? Well, nostalgia for one. A lot of people grew up on this movie and watched copies like this. There are older versions that have better covers than this, but this is a late VHS copy that was released. And so people obviously like the nostalgic aspect of taking a tape out, putting it in the player and saying, tonight we're watching A Nightmare on Elm Street. Bang. The old school experience of Be Kind Rewind definitely comes into play for one. There's also the scenario of too much resolution reveals too many flaws with older horror movies. I mean, look, A Nightmare on Elm Street benefits greatly due to the lower resolution of VHS. Now, it's not for everyone. Some people might say, oh no, I want the pristine Blu-ray collection. That's fine as well. Like, I enjoy watching this as well. But when I can, I try to watch the VHS copy because this, in my view, is the correct way to watch A Nightmare on Elm Street. It feels gritty. It adds a layer of scariness to the movie because lower resolution, things that are a bit blurrier, like you, it just adds a bit more suspense, a bit more grittiness to a movie like this. And people also do it with movies like The Evil Dead and like movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Lower res isn't necessarily bad. Some people also prefer if it's 4:3. Now, it seems like an odd choice for something that was filmed in widescreen to be presented in 4:3. But, you know, sometimes movies benefit greatly from having that crop. I mean, I think one of my followers mentioned that they looked at The Evil Dead on, I believe it was DVD. They went from VHS to DVD. And because DVD was obviously widened out, they could see one of the cast members in it. And, you know, obviously when they were filming The Evil Dead, they wouldn't have planned for that. So, yes, this is why some things with higher resolutions reveal too many flaws with the movie. We've seen like movies like Face Off, which isn't a horror movie, but movies like Face Off, you can actually see the strings holding the actors. It's like higher resolution doesn't necessarily mean it's better. I mean, definitely it looks better, but it doesn't mean it is better. So why would I be talking about horror fans enjoying VHS? Well, it's because, as I said, nostalgia. It adds a bit of a layer of grittiness. It adds a bit more of a scary aspect to the movie when you're watching it, because it is blurrier. It's a bit more. It's a bit more in line with old experiencing of movies, especially if you're watching it on CRT TV. But yes, horror movies on VHS are beat widely in terms of resolution by a Blu-ray copy or a DVD copy. But what if I told you that VHS in a way is making a return through horror fans who do seek these things out and do want to watch it this way? Because, as I said, it adds a layer of nostalgia, but it's also about some movies were just better on VHS. And that seems like a weird thing to say. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, but you can download 4K. Yes, you can. Doesn't mean it's the right experience. The thing about experiencing movies is it's about the person experiencing it rather than the experience. And what does that mean? It means that while some people will prefer a Blu-ray copy, and there's nothing wrong with that, the Blu-ray copy is amazing, it is an amazing transfer, you should watch it if you can. But it might not be the experience for everyone. I, for one, like the experience of the VHS because it just adds an extra, it has an X factor to it. And it is a physical format that has since been long erased by many generations of discs and optical media. But, yes, it comes down to personal preference. We also need to look at the fact that with VHS, up until a couple of years ago, you could get these things for dirt cheap. Like, these were going out for 50 cents, $1, compared to Blu-rays, which was like 20, 30, whatever, at stores. You could essentially pick up VHS for really cheap when people were offloading all theirs. And yes, now that it has, there's a resurged interest in VHS, so it has went up greatly in value. But it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, look, I would definitely recommend maybe not picking up A Nightmare on Elm Street if it's beyond a certain cost. But there are people who say, no, I need to have the one with Nancy on the front, the artwork, which is the proper version of this cover. This is a late release, so this was obviously a bit later in the release of VHS. But the one with Nancy on the cover and the artwork, that's just as important as why you would pick VHS over Blu-ray. Obviously, you can see Freddy Krueger there, you can see Freddy there. But the original artwork with Nancy, that was essentially... the artwork on VHS was unique to VHS, and you don't get the same experience looking at an artwork on like a Blu-ray. It's like it's all packed into one. Essentially, you don't even have individual covers for this one. But look at the individual artwork on this. Like, you have a bit of writing on the back, you have Freddy on the front, and you know, it is it's still A Nightmare on Elm Street, all of them. But let's look at the VHS copy. The artwork on this, look at this baby. I'll try to get that glare off. This is art in a lot of ways, and they don't do releases like this anymore. At least not widespread. And it's also like a physical item like this actually feels like you're watching something and you feel like you want to watch something. With Blu-rays, it's 7 in a pack or 8 in a pack, and it's like, yeah, but I want the experience. I don't want just to watch the movie. I want the experience of watching the movie. I want to take time to put this in my VHS player. I want to head clean the VHS player before I watch it, because obviously dust, everything builds up in VHS players, or VCRs as you would call them, and that could ruin the experience. So you'd give it a head clean first, then get the head cleaner out of there and put your movie in. It's an experience, and that's why a lot of horror fans are going back, because this is a better way to experience movies. The lower resolution actually adds to the movie, if you believe that. You're giving up resolution by going back, but you're gaining a whole new experience and a whole new view of the movie. I mean, look, there's also different cuts on VHS, so there may be cuts unique to VHS that never made it to Blu-ray or never made it to DVD. I mean, if we talk about something like Laserdisc, there are cuts of movies on there that never made it across, like Scream, one of Wes Craven's best movies, another one by the same director. I don't know where Scream is. Scream is over there. I'm not going to get it out because I've done a bit of a rearrangement. But yeah, Scream, the Laserdisc of Scream, holds the true director's cut from Wes Craven. And it's a lower res format. Don't get me wrong, it's a lower res format than a 4K or a Blu-ray. But you're getting the experience of how it was truly intended. Now, obviously, I think this one adds a bit more grittiness, but as I said, it reveals flaws. So there will be scenes in here like with Freddy with his arms extended out, chasing Nancy along the laneway, or the alleyway as you'd call it, when he's got his arms all the way extended out and he's just going along. The Blu-ray copy reveals a lot of flaws with that scene, and it reveals the kind of clunkiness of that scene. Whereas the VHS version, it just feels like, oh my god, like here comes Freddy. And my favourite scene in A Nightmare on Elm Street that really speaks volumes, and it's one of the reference parts where I say this is better on VHS than the Blu-ray. I would show him the part where he's chasing Nancy through the boiler room, and then he comes around that corner and says, "Come to Freddy," and he's pulling the the knives along the guardrail, and you just hear that screeching metal. that is so much scarier on the VHS copy because it is lower res. It is it's like then Nancy does the thing. It's just a dream. Come to Freddy. But this is why I prefer it on VHS. Now it's not for everything. It's like I choose VHS for stuff like old wrestling events as well because that's the intended way to watch them. But it's also another thing about yeah, you need to look at it as like, it's not for everyone. You need to choose your own experience. But in saying that, you also need to be aware that it is lower res. You're not going to see HD quality. So you shouldn't be trying to up sharpen it and try to sharpen it up on a 4K TV to try to match a Blu-ray reference. If you want to watch a Blu-ray, watch a Blu-ray. But also, the best way to experience a VHS of an older horror movie is on a CRT TV. So it's a bit unfair to hold it to the same reference as like, oh, I want to watch it in 4K. Well, if you want to watch it in 4K, I'm sure there will be a 4K version of this eventually. But the horror movie on VHS holds a lot of sentimental value to a lot of people because it's the way they experienced a lot of horror movies. And it's also, in a way, a lot better than something like a Blu-ray because it adds to the movie. It has an X factor. You're holding a physical item that you're putting in it's on tape, essentially. You know, it holds a lot of that value because it does kind of, it's a time machine back to a forgotten era. And as we've went further towards quality, resolution, 4K, it's like, this is not forgotten. This is just as good as the 4K in terms of experience. And that is what it's about. The experience of the movie. That's why horror fans go back. Not because we know there's 4K versions available. We know we can get the Evil Dead on, let me get it out. We know we can get the Evil Dead on 4K. We know this. We understand this. But it's not about that. It's about the experience it brings with it. And that's where I'm going to end it because I feel like I'm going on a bit of a rant. I had to speak up a bit then because there were little kids walking past. Kids walking past the window and I'm trying to drown out that noise, so if I was yelling a bit during that last minute, that's why. But you know, we do this thing for fun. We know there's going to be sound outside. Until I eventually have enough money to buy my own studio, this is how we're going to have to do it, guys. But yeah, tell me why you prefer horror movies on VHS, or why you would not be caught watching a horror movie on VHS. Tell me why you prefer Blu-ray or VHS over one or the other for an older horror movie like A Nightmare on Elm Street. Tell me why you think that. Tell me why you prefer the experience of one over the other. I love to hear what you guys have to say, and I do read the comments. Even though other YouTubers tell me do not read the comments, I'm a fan of, if I'm not interacting with my fans, then what's the point of even doing it? So yeah, if this video goes viral, I may not be able to reply to everyone, but just know I am reading your comments. I have seen them, I am scrolling through, and you know, we all love a movie. At the end of the day, we're all here because we love movies. And yeah, pick up A Nightmare of Elm Street on VHS if you can. Or if you don't have access to this, if it's outside your price range because they have went up significantly, then pick up the Blu-ray or DVD. There is nothing wrong with that either. Cater the experience to your own liking. Just because I prefer watching the first Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS doesn't mean it works for everyone. It's subjective, it's based on the person experiencing the movie. And that's where I'm going to leave it because I feel like that explains it best. You are unique. Your experience is unique experiencing a movie. Like I could watch a movie and get a different experience to what you get from watching the same movie. So it's unique to the person watching it. And I believe that if you love film, cater the experience to whatever you prefer. If you prefer Blu-ray, go towards Blu-ray. If you prefer VHS for older movies, then go that way. Or if you prefer to choose, depending on the night, buy both and then see what you prefer on the night. But anyways, I'm going to leave it there. I've went for 15 minutes. And if you like this video, like, subscribe, get notifications, leave a comment because I love hearing what you guys have to say. And tell me, do you prefer A Nightmare of Elm Street? A Nightmare on Elm Street? Sorry, I don't know what's going on with me today. Do you prefer a version of A Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS or Blu-ray? And tell me why you prefer one or the other. I love hearing what you guys have to say, and I appreciate every follower I get. So peace out, and I will catch you in the next one.